Great days and glorious victory! My name is Spifflemonk and welcome to my Let's Play. Today's game is something known as Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine Anniversary Edition. I have been told in hints and comments about this, universe before from Rubik's and his crew when we played Barrow Trauma, and while I'm busy recording footage for Grounded, I need to take a vacation from the spiders. So, here we go. Spiffle starts the game up, and has issues with screen resolution, but fixes it eventually. Finally, he has the chance to pay attention to the menu screen, and sees what's going on. A slow-motion compilation of Captain Titus, the Space Marine, fighting with orcs and utilising a rather brutal-looking weapon, along with a reasonably large amount of blood and gore in high resolution. Oh dear, what have I gotten myself into? Well, I'm here, so I might as well. Spiffle chooses the easiest difficulty and starts the game. The introduction sequence starts. The opening cinematics are dated, but still pretty cool looking. Spiff makes some mental notes as it plays through. Manufactorum? Forge World? Warlord class Titan and Exterminatus? What? What's an Ultramarine? The introduction sequence finishes, and a number of warship hulks drift across the screen. The architecture catches Spiff's eye and makes a grunting noise. Why do those ship designs look familiar? The cutscene goes into Captain Titus's face, zooming out on the aged battle-hardened Astartes. Spiff stares in awe at the sight of the armor, gilded equipment and heavy weaponry in the cutscene, ignoring the conversation for the moment and just staring at the equipment. The jump begins and Spiffle's face gets locked into an open-mouthed jaw-on-floor position as the scene of devastation plays out. Captain Titus weaves through the mass of hulks and machinery and lands on the deck of the Orc flagship. Spiff remains open-jawed and plays as best he can, as he is immediately attacked by Gretchins, the first of the game's enemies. He quickly makes sense of the situation, having played human games before, and shoots the red barrels and opens the way forward. After carving his way through a few Gretchins and an Orc or two, he repeats the process until he gets to the gun. Here, he sees the first Orc warboss. What got you that? Spiffle finally catches himself and rescues his jaw from the floor. What the feck is that thing? Why does it have a cannon for a hand? And what the hell is that thing on its jaw? What even is that? Spiff fights a bit more and secures the gun. Titus grabs the cannon, turning it on the Orc warship's bridge and disabling the ship. The cutscene shows the flagship crashing into the planet's surface. Again, Spiffle sees something odd. Why are these ship designs so familiar? What is this game? Spiff watches a few more cutscenes, acquiring Leandros as a squadmate. Spiff finishes the fight, then takes some time to see what the game even is. He moves around a bit, sprinting, diving. He gets used to the feel of his character. The Space Marine is hefty, heavy and bulky. His movements and footsteps feel as though he is a living tank. After this, he goes through further and sees some extra bits and pieces here and there that he recognizes. He recovers the chainsword from an Astartes supply pod and looks at the vicious new piece of equipment. He gets to use it immediately as he carves his way through a field of orcs, even scoring an execution by cutting an orc in half. Spiffle fails to have any worse to say as he carries on. His face distorted by an expression of shock and confusion, his skin changing to that familiar pale hue. Eventually, he gets to the bunker and the cutscene there plays out. Look at the damn size difference! These guys are fecking huge! Is it any wonder I feel like I'm playing with a walking tank? Spiff plays further, noting strangely familiar machinery, and noting even more odd things about this game as he does. He gets further on, acquiring the jump pack from a supply pod. His face brightens as he uses it to slam into a group of orcs. He's genuinely starting to have fun now. He slaughters his way for the next area, acquiring a few nice executions on the way, eventually being forced to drop the jump pack, much to his annoyance, and acquiring the Stalker Bolter. I say, Stalker Bolter? How do we use... Oh, it's a sniper rifle. Okay, very odd name for a gun, but I've seen odder. Okay, let's keep going then. Spiff enjoys the next cutscene, but fails to notice the story, as he's too busy trying to catalogue his surroundings in his head and pick up ammo. Spiff ignores the conversation in the background and starts gabbling about how the architecture feels so familiar. There's something so odd. I'm sorry, I know I should be paying attention here, but I can't. There's something so odd about it. I swear I have seen this kind of structure and decoration before. I can't place it though. Spiff carries on and slaughters his way through some orcs and finds the first point. He presses the button and the artillery shell appears out of the ground. What the blazes is that? Is that an artillery shell? How am I supposed to... Oh. Well, shit. Spiff's train of thought is derailed as he places the melter charge on the shell, and his character uses his ridiculous strength to shove it into the loading belt. Spiff is amazed at the strength of the Astartes and remains open-mouthed in awe as he slaughters his way through the next section of the game. Spiff nearly gets killed as he focuses too much on the use of the bolter, rather than getting executions to maintain his health. The cutscene plays as Spiff finishes the level, and the massive cannon emplacement explodes in a cheesy but entertaining boom. Well, that's done then. That explosion sequence was... how can I best describe it? Pellin? Yeah, I think that's a good way to do that. Pellin is the Eridani word for, like, cheese, I think. Yeah, Pellin is cheese, or Pellini, I guess. Wow. I hate language sometimes. Spiff gets to the next scene and lets out a delighted squee as he sees the next objective. A train. Train! Yay! What? Battering ram? What are they going to... Oh, bugger. I should pay more attention. The orc things are going to use the train to breach the... What was it again? Manufactorum? Gotta stop it, I suppose. Spiff fights his way through a legion of orcs and dies to the orc plasma turret. He squeals angrily in Eridani and tries again, with difficulty but manages the job. Eventually, the orc warship starts flying nearby and engages. This fight, for Spiff at least, is surprisingly easy. Spiff watches the cutscene and is a bit put off by the cinematic. Bacheleni Peleni Bako Intehan. Spiff shakes his head after he catches himself speaking in his native tongue. I mean, my god, that was cheesy. Spiff moves to the next location and watches the next cutscene this time. He nearly retches at the sight of the human corpses strewn about in various stages of disembodiment, though. What the smeg is a servo skull? Is that a human skull mounted on a mechanism? What the hell is with this universe? Okay, what's an Inquisition? Experimental Oh, for Baraka's sake, can I play a human game without having to do research for 6 hours every time? Spiff fights on, watching the cutscenes as he goes, while he gripes about having to do more reading after the recording is over. Eventually he fights through some more orcs, nearly getting killed by an orc knob, and drops a giant plasma cannon on an orc camp with a chuckle. Spiff gets to the elevator to meet with the Imperial Guard, and pauses for a moment. Okay, wait. You mean to tell me that after all that, orky things with those huge axes and big fuck-off guns, these tiny humans, these Imperial Guard, managed to get through all that shit and get on this elevator? Even with the big stupid train, the big stupid flying warship thingy, and the big stupid gun on a crane, these humans managed to survive all that shit? Nope. I don't believe it. Immersion broken. Screw it. Spiff scoffs in annoyance and watches the cutscene. He goes through the Imperial Guardsman's camp and through a few more elevators into the Manufactorum. On the side of the War Titan, his jaw hits the floor and sits there staring at it for a while. He stays jaw open and carries on, finding more strangely familiar architecture on the way through the cutscenes and game. He eventually finds Inquisitor Drogon and watches the cutscene, his jaw still wide open in shock. Whoa, wait, what? Psyker? Did I hear that right? Psychic abilities controlling bleeding? What? Blasphemy! Blasphemy, I say! Spiff pauses the game and goes into a short angry tirade, directing his apparent religious righteousness into denouncing Drogon and his apparently heretical abilities. It is at this point the screen pauses, and Spiff's editor Francine shows a short description of Eridani culture, specifically a part of their religious beliefs that denotes a very much justified, at least to the Eridani, hatred towards psionics or magic powers of a sort. Apparently, even the concept of a magic user can make the normally peaceful Eridani become rather aggressively homicidal. Francine happily skips Spiffle's half-hour-long tirade and finally shows him calm, with a cup of Yorkshire tea and a top hat, with a monocle. What? Don't judge me. You are supposed to drink tea like this, you heathen. I mean, really? Spiff scoffs and finishes his tea. He removes his tea-drinking outfit and resumes playing, trying his best not to get too angry at Drogon and fights through the game. Eventually he gets to the next cutscene, where Drogon's voice makes him visibly unamused. He acquires the power axe from the supply drop, and the cutscene plays out where the Orc Shaman is introduced, and Spiff goes batshit angry at the sight. He ignores every other enemy, much to his detriment, and beats the Orc Shaman's head off, eventually progressing further. Abominable fetid creature! Oh, what? The war boss? Is this the boss battle then? Spiff gets through the next cutscene and gets attacked in the venting chamber, holding the weapon. He faces a few waves of enemies and nearly gets killed several times, because he's focusing too much on killing the shamans and war boss to bother fighting anything else. Eventually he gets to the cutscene and he squeals in shock as Captain Titus grabs the power source. Well, that's an interesting cutscene. Why would you grab a microfusion generator with your bare hands exactly? That seemed a little silly to me, but apparently I survived. So, tunnels again? This game seems to have a lot of inside stuff apparently. Spiff eventually gets to the surface and gets to chapter 8 of the story. He admonishes himself for not paying more attention to the story, and goes pale at the sight of red splattered across various walls and floors. The spattering of human corpses everywhere, plus the conversation between the Marines, makes Spiff pause the game, go pale, and then curl up in a whimper for a while. Eventually, the scene cuts back to Spiff resuming gameplay after another cup of tea. The next cutscene plays, and rocks start dropping from the sky. Wait, millions? Millions? How bloody many of these things can there be? I ain't fighting all that shit, am I? Spiff finds the las cannon and encounters a new enemy, a shooter boy with a rocket launcher, and quickly uses the new weapon to great effect, killing the first few he sees with ease. Spiff stops and makes a note on a nearby writing pad. Item 84 for research. Terminology, mass grave. There. Things to look forward to, I suppose. He carries on through the game, quickly finding the rocket boys to be the bane of his existence, as he nearly gets killed by a wayward rocket. He dispatches the target with prejudice and carries on. The next cutscene plays, and Spiff makes some mental notes on more research, until he hears the phrase, psychic scourge. He jumps out of his chair and engages in another witchcraft-hating rage fuel rant, that Francine thankfully skips past. Spiff is seen drinking a third cup of tea, again, with the top hat and monocle in a most gentlemanly way. Eventually, he returns to his senses and resumes playing the game. It is shortly after this that Spiff acquires the power hammer, and starts having the absolute time of his life the first time he smashes an orc's head into the floor. He gets the jump pack, and thanks to the hammer, he breezes through the next stage of the game like a shot, having way too much fun as he blasts his way through the hordes. I love this thing! Hammer your head, hammer your head. Can I keep this for the whole game? No, I can't. Would be too boring for the viewers, I guess. Have to keep it fresh and change weapons around. No matter. Let's see. Spiff continues and releases a number of happy expletives that Francine bleeps out, as he smashes an orc shaman's head clean off with his new favourite toy. He arrives at the Imperial Guard outpost and takes one look at an Imperial Valkyrie. He pauses and makes another note on his little notepad. Terminology for research. Imperial Valkyrie. Looks similar to something. Can't remember. Spiff boards the ship, and the next sequence starts as he flies in the Valkyrie, shooting down orcs and orc planes. Unfortunately, Spiff fails to bother saving the Imperial Guard Valkyrie from orc borders, and it goes down. Spiff fails to notice too much of the game, and nearly loses the mission by being slightly too slow, but ultimately manages to beat the mission. He retches and holds back a bit of a vomit as the cutscene shows an orc getting obliterated inside the Valkyrie's engine, and fights his way through the next wave of orcs. He loses his warhammer though, and struggles a bit. Eventually, he gets back the power axe and gets to the next area. More tunnels? More passageways? This game has a thing for tunnels, apparently. Oh well, let's go. Spiff moves through the debris of the area, making more notes as he goes, and finally reacquiring the Thunderhammer with a squeal of glee, and slaughters his way through more orcs, including shamans and rocket boys. He quickly blasts his way through, but has a lot of difficulty fighting through the turrets in the research facility. Once finally able to look around, Spiff retches a bit, as he looks at what's going on in there, taking closer looks at the artifacts and specimens in their cells and cages. Gods above! This is awful! I sure as hell hope humans don't actually do these things. Do they? Spiffle talks seemingly to nobody, and carries on to the next objective. He fights through the orcs that have breached the facility, and happily cars his way through a few orc knobs and a shaman or two. He laughs and squeals in delight as his favourite weapon beats through the orcs. The power source is inserted, and the way Drogon talks is a bit unsettling to Spiff, as he raises an eyebrow at the sight. That guy sounds a bit... what's the phrase? Sketchy, I think? Yeah, sketchy. That dude be sketch as hell. Spiff carries on playing, and happily hammers his way through more orcs as he repairs sabotage and heads to the main control panel to fire the weapon. Francine has to censor some very nasty Eridani slurs as the psychic scourge is used. The orc war boss appears as the weapon fires, and Spiff gets to fighting, not noticing the spire in the background is disintegrating. Oh crap! It's the boss fight! It takes Spiff 3 separate attempts to kill the orc war boss, with this being his toughest fight. The war boss kills him 3 times before he finally manages it, barely getting through it. The orc war boss collapses dead, and finally, Spiff takes a breath. Why did that fight take so long? What the hell? Damn it! Was I so bad at that, or was that just a hard boss fight? Oh well. Looks like the game is over then. Let's see. The cutscene plays out, and the orc war boss comes back to life. Oh, bugger off! I hit you in the face 100 times with a big feck-off hammer! You're supposed to be dead! The cutscene shows a warp portal appear, followed by a group of very clearly not friendly creatures. See? See? I told you! I told! The cutscene is cut short, as Francine has to use a series of bleeps to censor Spiffle's angry tirade, as he says more nasty things about magic and its users. The cutscene plays out, finishes, and Spiff is too busy being angry to bother playing, and Titus dies due to Spiff being AFK, thanks to his angry words. He has to restart the mission and starts hammer smashing his way through a swarm of both orcs and chaos demons. Spiff has trouble because the demons are significantly harder to kill than the standard orcs, and he eventually manages to find a way through to the next objective. Barely. A cutscene plays, and Spiff seems to at least have tried to calm down. And then he gets an abnormal sparkle in his eyes as he gets a rather sinister smirk across his face.
Oh, please, 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 gods of the game! Please let this mean I get to play as the giant super big war robot thing? Please!
Spiff gets through the next phase of the game, again loving the power of the Warhammer as he blasts through the hordes of demons and orcs alike. He pays attention to each cutscene that follows, each time making a note in his little book. He's genuinely shocked to see the Imperial Guard still standing, and still fighting as the demons arrive.
First the orcs, now the demons? And these guys are still around? You can't be serious! I mean, this game is pretty fun, save a few evils and inconsistencies. But after this, these guys are still around?
Spiff scoffs at the guardsman and carries on. He fights through more tunnels and uses the melter gun and plasma bolter to finish off an orc attack. Again, he scoffs at the fact that any Imperial Guard are still alive, but carries on. Eventually, after returning the sentry guns back to operation, he reacquires his Thunderhammer and faces off one more time against the Orc War Boss.
Oh, for God's sake, not this twit again!
It isn't that hard to beat the Orc War Boss, at least not this time, as he manages to figure out that the small orcs are there to give him health, so the War Boss is killable. Eventually, the War Boss actually dies, and Spiff lets out a happy cry as the War Boss is blasted to death by a plasma pistol. The next phase moves on, and Spiff eventually gets to the Manufactorum to the War Titan, only to face against his first Chaos Space Marine.
Hello? Who's this then? Wait, is that another Space Marine? Only pointier. Okay. Obviously he will be hard to beat, but let's go! With a combination of Melter Gun, Plasma Bolter, and Fury, Spiff beats the Traitor Marine easily, and nearly has a fit as he finally gets to the next objective. Board the Titan! Yes! I get to play with the giant murder robot!
Spiff gets too excited, and has to defend himself against flying sentry drones before he does, dying to them twice, before finally getting to the Titan itself.
Why are these damn things so annoying to fight? I just want to play with a giant murder robot!
He gets angry as he bores the Titan, eventually. Francine stops and shows another card detailing how Spiff went into an angry rant at the sight of a Chaos Sorcerer, and had to censor too many swear words as Spiff kept fighting while swearing large amounts of unintelligible slurs through the fight. A cutscene plays as the Titan's superpowered lascannon blasts the spire. Despite the game's aged graphics, the spectacle is impressive. More Traitor Marines and more Chaos Demons arrive after a few more cutscenes, again needing to be censored or cut out as Spiff continues his witch-hating tirade. He makes a note to yell at the game developers later for not letting him actually pilot the War Titan, but ultimately resumes a tirade. He misses the cutscene where Sidonis is killed, as he just continues ranting angrily over the course of the remainder of the game, with Francine occasionally showing a facepalm emote every now and then, as Spiff continues a tirade for the ages, getting to the final battle. Nemiroff's head is squished, as Spiff completes the last QTE, and Spiff relaxes, for the first time in over an hour.
See? See? That's what you get, evil witch creature! That's what you get, you hear? That's what you get for being witchy!
Spiffle truly can't help himself and leaves the room, his angry tirade ongoing as he walks out. Francine's cartoon avatar appears. Well, I guess that's it? Wow, sorry about Spiffle, well, the Eridani have an exceptionally long and blood-saturated history with the whole magic thing, so I guess this wasn't a good idea. Anyway, see you next time. Spiffle's outro plays. Top comment, translated from Eridani.
My god, man, you have quite the mouth. You kiss your wife and kids with that filthy thing?
Spifflemonk.
Oh, come on, like you wouldn't do the same.
Dragoncat64. Should we tell him? Absolver 4. No, we shouldn't. Spifflemonk.
Tell me what exactly?
Dragoncat64. Nothing. Spifflemonk.
Please tell me that you humans don't use magic?
Absolver 4. We can neither confirm nor deny your accusation at this time, as that information is classified. Have a nice day.
Spifflemonk. You fucking what?